alive!
I am Dracula.
Where are we? There we are. A little technical glitch. Welcome to Monster Manor, episode 11. I am excited about this guest because I've known him for, I won't even say how long, probably it's since early 90s. And we're going to talk about a lot of stuff that started back then and kind of came to fruition over those years. So I really am excited about this. Introducing my good friend, Mitch Hyman.
Dear Mom, the toilet wine was wonderful. I hope you get out of jail soon. Dad's been a real problem.
Mitch, you're on. Oh, man.
That's
so how are you doing, man?
Good. Scott, how are you doing, bud?
Very good. I mean, we are all surviving through this weird time we live in.
I love it. We both almost look lifelike, too, and everything. I'm looking at this. It's going great. You're great. Yeah. Look at the makeup job he did tonight. Is this is amazing?
Yeah, was Mike Davey there? You look good, man.
If Mike Davey was there, I got news. We have more problems. I'm not going to get into that.
Well, as I said in the little intro, we've known each other for a long time. And, not that I often get to say this, but I love you for your mind. I love you for the way that you see the world and the things that you put on paper. And I mean, I think the first thing we were joking about it a little bit before, one of the first things I ever worked on with you, and I think one of the last, oddly enough, was a little magazine called Star Trek. You remember that one? A little parody you did.
We were laughing because I did find the copy of it. Yeah, it's really funny. Do you know we had some pretty good artists in that thing? It was really surprising. We had some people actually had some names and notoriety. Tom and Joy Snyder did some pieces for it.
Yeah.
We had a couple other people that wound up. I think Bill Merriman put a piece in. I think worked for DC.
That's right.
We had a lot of people just kind of getting started at that time. We were doing zines, and zines were basically you go to Kinko's or someplace like that. You print it off. You get a stapler, you staple it together, you spend about a night with your friends, about 100 of them. You go to a convention going, you got to try this. It's really cool. It's really, really good. It's very fine. I promise it's really funny. You only got $1.50. It's only $1. How's that? You have 50 cents to call your mom and come pick you up.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, we had a lot of fun with that stuff. I mean, but that was a great time of freewheeling. That was when everything was just kind of getting started because the underground comics, which we get now called indies, but we were still doing what we called, it was still underground. And so you had people like Teenage Ninja Turtles had only come out recently. You had Cry for Dawn. You had a lot of this kind of stuff. So you had zines, comic books, all kinds of new and amazing things starting up. And some of the greatest artists you guys have now, you had like Eddie McGuinness coming out of the gate at that time. You had James O'Barr who did The Crow. A lot of people don't realize that Aircell Comics had somebody who I became pretty good friends with for a little while, a guy named Lowell Cunningham who did Men in Black. He was the Men in Black comic. Cowboys and Aliens was another comic book that was out at the time, became another movie with Harrison Ford in it. So we were kind of like, it was wonderful. It was a crucible at that time. It was a time where it was just, everything was boiling and cooking up, and these great amalgams of like art and writing were coming out with some amazing people. Bernie Wrightson was rising at the time. And Bernie Bernie's working at the indie. I worked with Bernie a couple of different times because he worked at the same indie company I did. So it was kind of cool. You'd go to shows and hang out with like Bernie Wrightson and some of the most Harlan Ellison. So it's wonderful people who are just getting into this whole wonderful thing about independent comics. And, that's actually where, it's where Bubba rose out of. So, you know, I mean, to me, I'll always love the industry. I'll always love all those people. And I'm still friends with a lot of them back and forth, which is really kind of nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that has kind of spread into a lot of things, that independent, feel. And you found very well that in the film industry as well, it's kind of reached its fingers. And some of the best stuff is not on the main studio releases; it's through the independent stuff.
It really is. And you know, it's funny how the comics were kind of like the blueprint for changing publishing, novels, things like that. We all see what goes on now with Amazon, so on and so forth, Great Space, whatever. And you see also with the independent film industry, they said, well, we just took this idea and expanded it. So it's kind of like, okay, the production line was invented in France. It wasn't Henry Ford, but it wasn't mechanized. It was people staying at stations, assembling things and moving it down the line. What happened was that they decided to motorize, mechanize it. So now we have this great system that can be even more efficient because now it's got an automatic. So it's kind of repetitive, always going on. So once we got the conveyor belt going, said, okay, so we assemble a comic book. How much difference is it to assemble a novel and produce? Or even a film? Because what you need for a comic book was simple. You had to have a writer, and you need to have your inker and your colorist, and you had your artist. And okay, so you had your team. So same thing as putting together your sound person or your camera person and your director. These are all the same people, just doing roles named differently, but the same job. So once I understood integrated comics and independent publishing, independent film made complete sense to me. It was I needed to put these pieces together, make them modular, and then see if we can make this whole thing go on an automatic production line. And to be honest with you, it worked great. And then distribution became an easy point. We'll get to that in a few minutes. So anyway, Scott, you had some questions.
Yes. Basically, you know, when you started this ride, you know, you've been a writer for your whole professional life, correct?
Ruth, yeah. I started out in advertising, working, you know, doing work for General Motors and Budweiser, all kinds of people back in the day, working for about 4 or 5 different agencies, Chicago, New York, and down here, even Orlando. I came out of radio originally. So after coming out of radio, doing commercial work in radio, you know, doing voiceovers and things like that, it was a natural progression that you had to start writing what we called copy for clients or whatever it was.
Right.
So as time went on, so I got nominated for a couple of Addies, and I started realizing that I like this like 15 to 60 seconds to sell you something. It's fun. And so I did a lot of, it gave me a chance to really use a lot of the comedy I was using in radio to give me a chance to really sit there and push my chops further. So for me, it worked.
What brought you there? I would have to ask that question. You know what? Because obviously you always had a quick mind. I mean, as long as I've known you, you've had a quick mind. But what led you there? I mean,
it's a radio? Because that's a funny story. Okay. At the time, I owned a bar, which was the stupidest thing you're ever going to do, kids. Don't ever buy a bar. It looks like a great idea. Let me put it this way. 45 drunks versus you and a small staff on a Friday night. That's nothing you want to get involved in. If you thought January 6th was bad, my January 6th was every damn Friday, Saturday night, okay?
Roadhouse.
Anyway, yeah, dude, it was. And let me tell you something. I thank God I had a Patrick Swayze working for me. Otherwise, we would have been dead. But the point is that, okay, so after closing, I got tired of the bar, and after about 4 or 5 years, said enough of this, and I was closing down. Now, the lady I was with at the time, that I was engaged to, had been in radio for about 7 or 8 years, and she had asked me if I was, interested, in going on this like cruise that her radio station was putting on one night. I said, sure, okay, I'll go to the cruise. It was a Halloween cruise, so I dressed up as Groucho Marx, and we went on the cruise. And she dressed up as Harpo. We went on the cruise, right? It's really funny to sit there and make a radio announcer Harpo because then they can't say anything. Well, you know what? BS. They're going to talk. Anyway, just ruined the whole thing. Anyway, we're on the cruise, and there's a really nice guy I'm talking to, and his girlfriend, and he's in a wheelchair because he has polio. So, but the only reason I'm making that mention is because of what happened. There was a gentleman who was he was German. He was at Epcot. I'll be honest with you. He worked for Disney. He worked at Disney's, one of the exchanges, and he kept hitting on this guy's girlfriend all night. Now you got to remember, I ran a bar. I got tired of this. I hated seeing this anyway. You know what I'm saying? But he knew that he had. He kept pushing this guy. His name was Bob Church. He was a wonderful man. Kept pushing him and pushing him. I got pissed. So another friend of mine was on the cruise. He was a salesman who worked for the radio station. We became friends over the time because we'd gone to different shows with my ex and everything like that. And He was dressed as Father Guido Sarducci. Now, this German gentleman was dressed as Satan.
Oh.
It was like mostly a foreshadow of my life to come.
Yeah.
So he kept pushing on. I looked over at my friend Levi. I said, we got to do something. He goes, what do you want to do? I said, I got an idea. Just follow me. We walked over to him. We picked him up by his devil cape, but the shoulder thing, and we took him to the side of the boat. Now, people across the country may be familiar with something called the River Ship Romance. It's a paddle wheel boat that goes on this lake in a place called Sanford, Florida. Okay?
Yeah.
So what we did was we hung him over the railing. And I said, look down there. See those little orange double lights? Those are alligators. Now, you're either going to be their best meal, and I hope they like German food, and I hope, honestly, I hope they don't get sick from it, or heartburn at least, because I know I do usually. And I said, or you're going to leave that gentleman and his lady alone and stay on your side of the boat for the night. And that was the end of that. So I went back, I'm staying with my ex, and Bob comes up and he goes, I saw what you did. I said, oh, you weren't really supposed to. He said, no, because Levi's like 6'2", so you can't miss him.
You can't, yeah.
You couldn't miss the guy. That giant Guido Sarducci running around with Groucho Marx. You're not going to miss this.
Yes.
And he said, I really like the way you hit. I said, well, thanks. He sat there. He goes, by the way, you got a great voice. I sat there and said, okay. I never really thought about it. I didn't really, everybody hates their voice. So I never really thought about it. He goes, you got a really good voice. He said, it was very commanding the way you were talking to him. And then when you switched to German and told him in his own language what you're going to do to him, I said, oh, yeah, you did hear all that too. Thanks, Grandma, for teaching me. Thank you, Oma, for teaching me that. Anyway, so he goes, would you be thinking of doing some part-time at the radio station? I said, you need somebody to clean up or something? What? I'm a bartender, what? And he started laughing. He sat there and said, no, he says, I think that she and a couple of other people that could train you pretty quickly. I think you go in the air and you're pretty fast, and why don't you do it? Next thing I know, I'm in radio.
Wow.
So, and by the way, the devil does listen to smooth jazz. If anybody ever wants that question answered, I worked for a smooth jazz station. So yes, we did smooth jazz, man. But
see, that would have been one of my ending questions was, what do you listen? What does Satan listen to in his off time? So now we know smooth jazz.
But it's really funny because now it's funny how Satan has been, this whole thing has kind of wrapped itself into my life. Okay. I'm really not that fond of, Satan is, I would nothing like shameless promotion coming at you in 3D. Anyway, so God, that was a joke. Wake up. It's me. Anyway, no, but it's really funny how it's always run through my life. Okay. And it's really funny. My father one time told me, we name you Mitchell. I said, no, why is that? He goes, because there's hell to pay at the end, just like with you. Okay, get raised by comedians, kids, and this is what you live with. You never know what the hell's going on. So that's really pretty much how I wound up getting into doing, the advertising, and then later on going into the one thing I loved, which I loved comics. So, so I went to the local comic shop like everybody else did, and I was really interested in the new books. And back then, like The Killing Joke had just come out, and Batman, everything had changed in comics. Yeah. Everything had changed. This is like 1989 or so. Everything, 88, and so on. Everything changed.
Yes.
And it's like, like The Killing Joke came out, Batman Dark Knight Returns, Superman was dead and came back. All this was going on at that time. Comics were not what we remember them to be. They were changing. Yeah. The indies were influencing them because people like Frank Miller, came out of the indies.
Yeah.
Bob Schreck, great editor. All these people came out of the indies. So now this whole thing is now starting to change. So I'm now like loving this. And I met a couple of writers and artists at the shops, and because they would used to come in, they lived here in Orlando, and it was nice to talk to about how does it work and how do you do this and all that. Now, back in the day when I first started, they were doing what they call mechanicals. Now, mechanicals were basically, you took a piece of cardboard, you took some stiff other whiteboard, and then you would print out the pages you came up with that were drawn, resize them down, take them to, let's say, take them to a real Photoshop, not Photoshop the program. Get them sized down, and then you would cut out the dialogue, and you would take hot wax or glue, paste it on there, photograph that, and then send that off to a printer. That was really prevalent until around 90, maybe 96, 97 is when that ended and digital started. But that time, that's how we did. We would sit around drawing boards, these long tables with dialogue laid out over here. There'd be word balloons, like 400 word balloons over here that were numbered and lettered, that we knew what they were, which page they went to. I'm amazed that most of us could sit there and figure out half the dialogue we put together. And the wonderful thing is, a lot of times we were sober, which is it really was helpful. The times we weren't, we're not.
Well, I have seen more errors in modern comics than the old ones when we were coming up, man.
It's funny. You know why that is? It's really simple. We're so inured, which means we're so used to, like, we go at the plays, go, yeah, I know what I did. Everything's fine. Da, 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 da. You only give it the once over. Now, I was trained 4 or 5 times. The old thing, like a carpenter, measure twice, cut once.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people now are just like, I don't know. They think they've got it nailed, and they go out and they go, it's fine. And if you make a mistake, they sit there, go, well, I meant to do that. It's fine. It's just a mistake. It'll be fine. Back in my day, you get fined. Remember, you could get fined for screwing up stuff like that or making big mistakes. And back in my day, there was a distributor, Diamond, that was like, I mean, any bad move, you're out. Bad enough they were taking 90% of your cover price.
Yeah.
But you made a bad move, or they didn't like you for some reason, or you didn't treat your brand manager correctly, or whatever it was. It was nuts because they were the only game in town. They still pretty much are. Things are changing. That's the one thing that hasn't really changed in indie film until recently, and with independent comics and publishing. There seems to be only one source for distribution. Now, a lot of people wind up going to Amazon, which is okay. But the problem with Amazon is simply this. How do you know you're getting a good book? These people are not vetted. They're not, a lot of them are hardcore pros. I'm not saying they're not good people, because there's been fantastic stuff come out that was self-promoted and all that. But out of all that dross, you got to find the gold. Right. And it's hard to tell even by the reviews who you're dealing with. And there were a lot of companies that you had to pay to get reviews, which was like ridiculous. So the best thing you do is simply this. I got smart about how I did mine. I just made sure I put good blurbs on the back cover. I would put a paragraph or two from the inside of the book that I guarantee would hook you and get you to look at this. Because working in the music industry, and I actually owned a recording studio for a while, you learn that everything's all about what they call the hook. Right. That one phrase, that one thing that gets you in. It's like we used to, in film, it's called the log line. And you know that, Scott, for being in the industry. What you have to do now is very simply this. You've got to give me one line that tells me everything I need to know about you and makes me want to know more about you. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I can qualify a writer in 15 seconds if I go up to them and ask them, what's your book about? You give me more than 2 lines, you're over-explaining. Yeah. I'm sorry, but I'm old school. But you know something? You're the same way. With attention spans so short these days, with all the instant gratification media and things we have, we want fast, snappy answers. That's why a certain ex-president got away with so much crazy stuff, because those tweets were brilliant, because it was like 2-3 lines. What the hell just happened? And my whole world literally flipped upside down by 2 to 3 sentences. Yeah. Okay. The end of the world came by almost 2 or 3 sentences, if they're used by the right writer, the right charismatic individual, and you know how to promote yourself correctly. I will never take that away from him, even though I don't like him. He knew promotion. He knew how to play people correctly, or incorrectly, let's say. And it can be a very powerful weapon. And it's a matter of, like, it is almost like great power comes great responsibility. So a lot of us that are in the industry, and you know this because you're a makeup artist, and you know by a couple of brush strokes or a prosthetic, whatever it is, you changed the entire look of something, or you created something brand new that's never been seen in the world before. Oh yeah, yeah. Now it goes out there, and now you basically have become Dr. Frankenstein, creating your monster, and it's out wandering around. But you, and you know this like anybody else does, you're responsible for that creature. So as we as artists or writers create, we are responsible for whatever we come up with. I'm sorry, I don't know. People don't want to believe that. But if you do stick with that, let me put it this way. I got pretty far in indie everything because I never forgot that rule, that I am responsible for whatever I lay out here. It's going to come back to me. It doesn't matter who you are or I worked with, whoever it is. The main core concept came from me. I'm responsible. I've got to make it work. And that's it. So when you do buy a book at Amazon, or you do decide to buy yourself a comic book, the comic book's wonderful because you go there and you can flip it and take a look and you know if you like it or you don't. Okay? The book is a little more difficult because the book, unfortunately, be smart. Go right to the center of the book. That way you won't know the ending, you won't know the beginning, and read just one page to see if even that page catches you.
Yeah.
So when you go to Amazon and places like that, they say download a sample, download the sample.
Mm-hmm.
You'll know what you're getting at that point. Okay. So this way I'm trying to make y'all a little sharper consumer. You're already pretty sharp, but this will make you an even sharper one. Because now you'll be able to sit there and go, finally, you can peel through all of this and find a book that's good for grandma, but definitely was not good, let's say, for your little sister or something, or
Right.
your father. Because you got to be careful, because you can buy a book these days and you get in the middle of it, and all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, I didn't realize. I'm sorry, I don't know if I can cuss, but I did. You just don't know.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I mean, that's the thing. And even on Amazon or any of those, anywhere there is a review, it can often be skewed. People will come on there and they'll promote their friends or whatever. So, I mean, that's good knowledge to have. I mean, it just so happens like with the stuff, because I did some homework on you. I found out stuff that I didn't even know. I think it was 2004. I am going to show this.
Still alive.
Kind
be
of
careful.
Yeah.
Don't tell my mom could be watching. Shh. She learned technology yesterday. No, anyway, I'm sorry, man. What was it?
Throw this up there, because this I never knew about this cover here.
Throw this and said throw this up. It's my work. You said throw up in my work. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
that's okay, Fencer. I remember. Ah, he's back.
So this was 2004, right?
Yep, this is 2004.
I never knew you were a writer on Cracked.
Yes, that's really funny. It's the best kept secret in the world. I got like some of the highest level pieces though. They handed me like some. I mean, I got to go after Jeb Bush when he was governor of Florida. I got to use the entire Crack staff who had never been used before in one adventure. Sylvester, everybody, Spike, every character that Cracked had, all showed up in one adventure because Bubba took him gator hunting to go find Jeb Bush, who was out in the swamps causing trouble.
Oh my God!
Okay.
So it was at least
this one. Oh
yeah. One. That must have been fun though, because I mean, I remember that time he was on The Apprentice, obviously, and he was a household name again. And he made famous. I think he even tried to trademark it. You're fired. How do you trademark that? But was that fun getting to, because he was in the public eye then. He wasn't the president, obviously, but he still ruffled a lot of feathers. No, but you got to really poke fun a little bit.
Well, let me explain to you what happened. That's a really good story. Let me tell you the story that happened with that, because it involved actually even a phone call later on where I actually got to call him a name, and I really enjoyed that. You're now talking to one of the few people you may know that actually calls him an a-hole to his face. Okay, so here's what happened. My editor called me up and said, "Mitch, we're gonna do this issue on Donald Trump." I said, "Good luck with that," because I'm like, ugh. And he's like, he goes, "Well, we want you, we're going to give you the cover." I'm like, "Oh, you're going to give me the cover?" I said, "I'm not an artist." So Scott's laughing. He goes, No. He says, "You want the?" He says, "You want to do you're going to get the cover piece." I said, "Okay. So what's the deal?" He goes, "What can you do with Donald Trump?" I said, "Throw him out of a third-story window, bury him in his own hotel. What would you like me to do with him? Because I don't like him."
Yeah.
They said
he was an annoying civilian then.
Oh, he was. You have no idea. Yeah, he was obnoxious. He was always someplace he should never have been, and he was always skeevy. You never knew. He was always with somebody shady he shouldn't really be with. If you looked at the old magazines or some of the photographs that were taken by UPI and API and all that stuff that were newspapers and stuff, Trump was always with some skeevy individual. I saw him with Nixon one time. That's how I knew I didn't like you at all. I was done. Okay. I lived through Nixon. No, done. Go away. There was a crook. So yeah. Let's make it really simple. So I came up with the idea of making him the apprentice for Crack Magazine, but I didn't want him working in the offices. I thought to myself, going, this would be funny. Let's put him in charge of the bathroom as a men's room attendant and make it profitable.
Yes.
So they had to turn the bathroom into a casino to make it profitable. And let me tell you something. I got away with jokes I should never have gotten away with. Okay. I mean, I had the usual, I had the old, the Motown 60s act. We had like the Royal Flushman, something completely different. The buffet was absolutely disgusting. At the end of the story, I flushed him down a toilet and called him a four-flusher. Okay?
Yeah.
Well, comes out, the issue sells incredibly well. I mean, I think 200,000 issues. That's pretty, and believe me, in comics and magazines, that is pretty sizable. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, holy crap. And my parents went to like Walgreens and bought it off the shelf, or walking around showing the pharmacist going, my son wrote this, and all of a sudden they're like going, who gives a crap? It's not Mad. We made jokes in the magazine that Crack was the magazine you bought when they were out of Mad at the newsstand.
Yeah.
We were the also. So I've always been in the also ran category. It's like going, I had to try. I was like Avis. I had to try harder because Hertz was ahead of me. Okay. If you ever know that old joke, you're too old to be even staying up this late. Anyway, so the thing is, so we do the piece, and there's some communications emails come in, and they're very unhappy. And it's from him and his publicist and about the magazine. And so my editor sat there and said, well, sure we can, where he said, he wants to talk to who did this. I'm like, okay. So I get a phone call, and they're going, Mitch, would you mind taking a call with us? I'm like, oh, no, sure. What is it? He goes, Donald Trump's pissed off. I said, so what? They go, perfect. Keep that attitude. And so a couple hours later, I'm on the phone with my editor, and he's got Trump, and Trump's fuming. So I'm sitting there like this, like going, okay, look. I can make it up to you. Who do you think you are? The artwork was terrible. I looked like my next door neighbor. I said, your next door neighbor looked that ugly? Holy crap. I feel bad for you, man. He's like, oh, you got a mouth on you. You got a mouth on you. You're a wise guy, aren't you? I said, well, I used to be one, but that's a long time ago. I said, besides which, I know where all the bodies are buried. She's like, know where Jimmy Hoffa is? It's a junkyard in Connecticut. Never mind. Anyway, so the thing is, right? So he's like,
now we're not being political here. This was way before he was running for office.
Dude, this is 2004, okay?
He was a generic guy back then, just a celebrity reality TV person.
A real estate developer. And
yes.
Basically a ne'er-do-well on the disco circuit. Come on, man. YMCA. I mean, what has that got to do with the positivity of America? YMCA. Really? I'll tell you one thing. He lives in 1973. I mean, I love the time we sit there and did that speech about, and all your husbands will be able to go back to work and you can stay home and take care of the kids. Like going, okay, name me a wife that does that really. There's a few, but there's not a whole lot anymore out there. And I'm like going, wow, you really are out of step. But anyway, going back to 2004. So I have him on the phone, and I said, look, I can make this all up to you. I said, I got a great idea. I'm going to do another piece in a couple of weeks. I said, I haven't had, Scott, my editor, approve it yet, but I'm going to try for it. It's based on a guy named Shakespeare. You might have heard of him. He's pretty famous. I know. I said, I know you only read Bazooka Joe comics, and those fortunes are nothing you should go by. The cookies are much better. Don't go by the bubblegum ones. I said, but he's a guy named Shakespeare, and I'm looking to do a piece with a guy that has all the charm of Richard III and all the taste of Henry VIII. Would you know anybody like that? Oh, you're right. I sat there and said, now look, calm down. He said there, he called me a name and said, well, you're an asshole, to be honest with you. He goes, I can bury you. I sat there and said, first, I'm in Florida. Nothing in Florida stays buried for very long. Do you remember the whole Hanging Chad thing that happened a few years ago? I mean, come on, man. So there's nothing really going to come out of it. He goes, I'm done with this. And he hangs up. Now, a few weeks later, they have a picture, and it's been it was on the net for a little while, but, I'll tell you a very funny story with that in a second. But anyway, so it's a picture of him tearing the magazine up and throwing it up in the air on a golf course, right? So I sent an email to his publicist saying, hey, listen, that's considered littering. The EPA could be really upset about this, and it got you dead to rights, and it got photos and everything. So I think you should go back there and pick all that paper up.
Yeah.
Ooh. Again, it got stony silence. Now, I'll tell you a very funny thing. The owner of the magazine at the time, and I don't know if that's the issue. If you flip the back, you'll see who our new owner was.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that.
Yes,
was that legitimate? That was a real thing? That wasn't just a ploy?
No. I'm not kidding, man. It was the weirdest experience to have. Plus Steve Tyler involved also. Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick now owned Crack Magazine right when I came on board. And then his partner in crime hanging out at the offices at that time was Steve Tyler. So it got real interesting around the place because it's just funny as hell. My favorite picture is Rick holding the 2 issues I did. Yeah, in a promotional thing, like holding up my 2 issues because they were the 2 best-selling issues of Crack in the last 5 years. I don't know if it was me, but you got to remember, we had some great writers, we had some really cool artists at the time. We were starting to really give Mad a run for their money, and we got thanks. Unfortunately, I'm gonna be honest with you, thanks to me, we got very political. And then when they gave me the Jeb Bush piece, it got really stupid. I'll see if I can ever find that one for you sometime. It was absolutely hilarious, though. Oh, I had him with a 10-gallon hat and a pair of cowboy boots.
Yeah.
That was him. That was the character. I told the artist that's what I want. So it was really funny. But we put Bubba into Crack magazine. So Bubba was in Crack, and he hung out with the characters, and it was really good. It was a lot of fun. But as far as it goes, that's the great thing about parody, because people try to tell me what parody is. I see these things, these mashups and stuff people do these days. Yeah. I'm really sorry. A lot of this is copyright infringement. I hate to tell you that. As a trademark copyright holder, I cringe when I see some of these.
Yeah.
And it's like, even with these days, like somebody did something recently where they actually did this thing that was an homage to some rock band, and they used a font. Now, maybe the homage is okay. They're using the album cover to your own purposes to make it a little different, wherever it was. But the font is copywritten.
Wow.
And I'm telling you guys out there, please be careful. These font creators are actually getting very active now. Now they have this new tag thing, NFTD, or I don't remember what it's called, but it's like if you do a meme of something and use a photograph, that becomes some digital tag that you actually can sell to people. You know the one about the little girl that's sitting in front of the burning house smiling? Because her father just sold that for $435,000.
Wow.
So be careful, because you could have that person out there realizes what it's worth now, and they're coming for you. So the best thing to do is do something original, please.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is that there's a lot of places out there, especially doing podcasts, because a lot of people, including ourselves, are doing podcasts. The thing is that when you have the Creative Commons agreements and you have people that are willing to put their music on there, you can use them for free. All you got to do is give them credit. You know, they want people to give them credit. And I know even as an artist or a writer, that is so important to us, because that's how we get our names out there.
And please do one thing. Do not ask for forgiveness later. Ask for permission first. It will save you so much grief. Look at the Bubba movie. It was all original music. I wanted all original music. John Catapano, my friend, and I had a long talk about this, and John knew this stuff because he'd worked for Steven Spielberg, all kinds of people. And he said, look, it's going to need a soundtrack. A lot of indie films fail in one thing: no music.
Yeah.
Really funny, Dracula, the original Dracula with Todd Browning, 1931. The one thing about that movie that bothered people more than anything else was those eerie silences.
Yeah.
Because music makes people feel more connected. And even in like movies like Bride of Frankenstein, even Frankenstein itself, they had something. But Dracula was flat.
Yeah.
People, the movie
1931 Frankenstein too. No soundtrack in that.
They were wonderfully eerie and startling and everything like that. But you know, a friend of mine one time was goofing around in the studio and he decided to put music to Dracula and to Frankenstein. Do you know how much better a movie it was? And I was surprised by this.
He was probably ahead of himself. Ahead of his time, because when they released it, I guess it was about 10, 15 years ago, I think they had Midnight Syndicate put a soundtrack to it. I believe that's
I love Midnight Syndicate. They're friends of mine, and they're great. I love those guys. But I'm going to tell you something. This was like 1992, 93 that my friend decided to do it. And I had a recording studio, so I said, he wanted to do side projects at the studio. I had a big 150-channel Allen and Heath board. I said, sure, go for it, man.
Yeah.
So I came in one morning. He'd been there all night, and he had scored Dracula. And we had the best hour and 20 minutes watching this, and the music was great. He goes, they start with Swan Lake. It's brilliant. So he took all these other classical pieces and put them subliminally into it. And it just, this movie, I'm telling you, it's a great film. Todd Browning was brilliant. But I tell you the truth, we could take the English dialogue, the Mexican director, and the soundtrack my friend came up with. That movie could be re-released today and would do billions at the box office.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you what, and again, we're talking about indie film. You take the best of everything modularly and move it on. So let's say you could do that with something like Dracula. So I thought to myself when I did Bubba, I want something like that. I want every element to lead to another part of the film. And that's where I said, when I said what I wanted rockabilly music, because I thought that would just be discordant and great with the 80s feel I was putting together for the film. I thought it was fun because we had this dog catcher turned werewolf. It was bizarre anyway. So definitely, that kind of music, just I call it ring banger. I needed a ring banger. So I was listening to things like, Hot Rod Lincoln and stuff like that. And I was talking to the guys from the Blast Offs, just Kevin Lyons and Misty and Billy. And they were, these guys were brilliant. So they would come back with these great riffs. And now here's the funny thing. Now the opening thing, it does belong to them. It was done by a different group, which I wasn't really, I'll be honest with you, I was not very happy about. Because I was in the advertising industry. I know everybody loves that opening, Bubba, opening jingle, because it's a jingle. Okay. Bubba the Redneck Werewolf. Okay. Bush, the really good beer. Okay. GM, a really great car company. Because it hit me as that. Okay. Because you've heard these generic commercials. They have about 4-piece band and maybe 3 people singing a cappella going, you want to go to Winn-Dixie, that kind of thing. To me, that whole thing was nothing but sing-song. I'm going to be honest, I can't stand it. I know everybody loves it. I can't stand it. The song I helped put together, I'm not doing this because there's no braggadocio or anything. It's just that I wanted that ring banger. It's at the end of the movie. That last song, where the last that walks you out of the theater. That was the song I wanted at the beginning to walk you into the film. So the end song, to me, that's what I liked. That would give you an idea of how I looked at these things. But as an indie filmmaker, and I'm going to tell you guys got to really realize it. You better learn about music. You better learn about sound effects. You better learn about makeup. I was very fortunate because I had done all of it. I've been an audio engineer. I've been a makeup artist. I understand music. I was a radio DJ. So I knew the elements I wanted. I knew the elements that were needed to make this film. And I loved movies. And being a Mel Brooks fan, I watched Mel and watched the way he would do things. Then I had an idea for the palette. Because working in comic books, color and hue and tone is everything. And Scott, you're one of the best makeup artists I know out there, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. So all of this had to be considered. So you can't just sit there and say to yourself, going, I've got my iPhone, or I got this, or I got that. I'm gonna do a film. You can. But if you want to make it a standout great film, you better learn these elements. So take a year. It took me 10 years to make Bubba, guys. Okay. I know we filmed it in about 4 or 5 months, but it took 10 years to put it together. And what I learned in all that time was that if I'm really going to do this, I better spend some time learning about this and this and this. I learned about legal contracts. I learned about this. I learned about all this other stuff like this. The only thing I didn't learn about is how lawyers operate, not so much the contracts, but them. We'll talk about we'll get that later. But right now, what I'll tell you is very important to know is that if you're going to spend time doing this, you think this is your life's dream, your life is almost going to be 100 years. I think you could take one, and we've just spent a year and a half all locked up and locked down. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I was not staying idle. I had a year and a half to be left alone to concentrate, work, and do. All I did was basically work out, put a couple of nice cars together, some antique cars and stuff, with a couple of friends and stuff like that. But for the most part, it was writing, creating the next level of what I want to do and learning more things. So I wanted to learn more about contract law. I want to learn more about accounting, how it works in this business. Learn more about the distribution chains, the lines, revenue streams, merchandising, how you can make this or anything with it. Because let me put it this way. When it comes down to Bubba or any of the other films you're going to make yourself merchandisable. Because if you are going to sell it to somebody else and try to get it distributed later on, they want to know, can we get a toy? Can we get a game? Can we get this? Can we get that? What I learned how to do is write video. I learned how to write a video game. So I never even play video games, but I want to learn how it works. So I can present a video game to somebody if they ask me about, you want a Bubba video game, which we came up with. So these are all the things. Or do you want an app or this or that? The app thing, it's not hard. You can get a book on it, learn to make an app. If you can make an app for whatever you're doing and be able to give the app to people and put some really cool things onto it and some little like Easter eggs and treasure chesty stuff, they're going to love you. They're going to love you. The more interactive you are, the more you can involve them in your dream and bring them along. Let me put it this way. Anybody who's writing my Bubba comics for years became automatically a citizen of Cracker County, Florida. You now are officially, they called it Broken Taint in the movie. Originally, it's called Pig's Knuckle Bend, which I thought was the best part of the hog. So to me, it was like becoming part of the family. And so when you read Bubba, you became part of the Bubba family. You hung out with us, you had the books, you did.
There were a lot of cameos in that book.
What's that, buddy?
There were a lot of cameos in that book. I remember you having drawn in certain elements, and you'd show me some of these things in the past. That, oh, you know who that is? That's this person, or that's this person. So you are not lying. I mean, you put friends into that book.
It was fun. It was really fun to do. Another guy who did a lot of that was, again, I became, friendly, not friends, but friendly enough that I would go to lunch or talk to, with George Perez.
Yeah.
George is one of the most wonderful human beings you're ever going to meet anyway. But brilliant man, comics and so on and so forth. But George had done a book where he went around to a lot of the people he knew and asked if he could put them in it.
Mm-hmm.
And the book was hilarious because we don't realize what it was about. It was a book called Crimson Plague. Okay? Mm-hmm. And he has Carol, his wife, is a sweetheart.
Yeah.
But like every lady, she has that time of the month. And sometimes it affects certain ladies worse than others. And lady, you know what I'm talking about, okay? It can be either horrifyingly bad, or you might be lucky, or menopause and all that. So he knows that his wife would be a little or other ladies he was around were a little more testy during that time of the month. And who wouldn't be, okay? You're in a lot of pain. So he based Crimson Plague on most of the ladies' menstrual cycles. Crimson Plague was kind of that.
That's news to me.
But we talked about it one time, and it was like, if that was what Crimson Plague really was, it was because of that. And it's very funny. Now, I hope I'm not in trouble for telling this, but it was just, I thought it was brilliant. But that's the writer. That's what George. Everybody thinks he's an artist. He is an artist, but he's a writer. I mean, boy, is this guy a writer? But
yeah.
So he was smart about. He took something that kind of affected him in a way, and decided to lighten it up. He decided, something, it'll be fun if I bring all my friends in. Let's make a real funny, happy experience out of something that's really not a lot of laughs.
Yeah.
And with Bubba, a lot of times it was like, there were so many people I loved and just were so friendly. And I said, I got to throw them in there somewhere. So it's kind of like, the old, I just had to do it because I used to love Mad Magazine Cracked, because they would do all these little like bits and pieces here and there. And like Sergio Aragones would do these wonderful marginal stuff. Oh, by the way, Sergio is one of the funniest, nicest people also. I know I keep saying that, but I'm saying I met so many knuckleheads in the business, but I can tell you all the nice. If you ever one of the nice ones, I will be happy to point you out the 5 or 6 of them that exist.
Yes.
So, but that's pretty much how it all comes around. So, like I said, the creative process, especially if you can do something like this, take the time. You got a long life. You got a long life. Take a year or two. Learn your craft. Be that expert. Don't walk into a room full of attorneys or producers and not be able to walk the walk and talk the talk.
No, you at least have to have a broad knowledge. When I got into this, it was probably, I graduated in 89, 90. So I went right from there into television and video production.
I remember I was there.
Yep. And then it was paralegal studies over at Florida Metropolitan. They're not even here anymore, but I took paralegal classes because I felt those two things were probably the most important, to learn the technical and the craft I wanted to enjoy, and the legal end, so I wouldn't be broadsided by people that would take advantage of me. And, even with that prep, it still happened. I mean, you're never totally immune to it, but prepare yourself with knowledge and prepare to read all you can.
But here's the thing, where I was able to get mine off my back, was I learned how to argue intelligently, throw them into a corner. It's nothing better than watching a lawyer cry. I've gotten 2 of them to cry. It's the coolest thing to watch these guys, these soulless wonders, cry. And here's the other thing I tell you guys. It's not about attorneys. It's about the accountants. And the one thing a lawyer is afraid of is an accountant. Accountants, however, are nowhere afraid of attorneys.
Yeah. Well, what's the old phrase?
Right now.
Liars figure, but figures don't lie.
There it is, right there. Because the law is open to interpretation. However, accounting is
numbers are constant. Yes.
That's it. And that's honestly, man, that's really what it comes down to, is you've got to understand that. And when the time comes and something goes wrong, let me put it this way. When you're ready to set up your corporation, because you should set up a corp, do not operate as a sole proprietorship. Don't let anyone talk you into that. Please learn. You go with the corporation. Do not have an attorney set it up. They're not supposed to, really. They do, but you really shouldn't. Go to an accountant.
Yes.
Because it's going to be about what they call disbursement. You know what that is? That's your money, okay? coming out of your wallet, out of the wallet, and then being given to this person, that person, this person, because the attorney does not set that up correctly. I had at least 2 or 3 of those type of contracts and agreements. We couldn't figure, and these were done by good attorneys. Couldn't figure out where to pay anybody from. So they said, well, maybe you should get an accountant. I'm like going, yeah. And also, here's something else. If a lawyer ever gives you tax advice, call the bar association and the cops.
Yeah, that's like calling a plumber to fix your car.
Not allowed to. It's illegal for them to give you that kind of information. It's also illegal for an accountant to give you legal information. But lawyers will sit there, and I actually caught one in an email where he was giving somebody legal advice. He was giving them tax advice.
Yeah.
Well, let me put it this way. He was no longer a problem to that person afterward. He's pretty much gone now. He's not practicing because you can't do that. And you guys have got to understand, lawyers are not gods. They're the most flawed. Let me put it this way. Most people get into psychology because they're crazy.
Yeah.
Did you know psychologists have to be psychoanalyzed before they can go into psychology? And if you ever asked a psychologist how their background was mostly in life, most of them are like that. Now, my wife happens to be very related to one of the most famous psychologists in the world, and it's a little different with some of them. But many of them, the ones you'll find working at strip centers and strip malls and stuff like that, watch out for those because, again, not saying they're bad people, but the thing is, go get 3 or 4 opinions. If someone says you're crazy, go get 3 or 4 people to find out whether you are. There's an old saying: if 3 people tell you you're drunk, go lay down.
Yeah.
So if 3 psychologists say you're crazy, you might be nuts. So you might want to sit down a little bit. Same thing with attorneys. Go to an attorney. Go to the first one. They consult usually for free. If they don't, you don't want to go to that attorney anyway because they're going to keep upcharging you. Yeah. Go to the attorney. Get what you need to find out where you are. Go to another attorney. See if they agree with that attorney. Okay. And here's what I did. I found out later on to do. It's very simple. I talked to a contract attorney. I talked to an entertainment attorney. And then I talked to a tax attorney. So I wanted to see how this whole thing, once it's all balled together, would roll out. Now, I didn't do it with Bubba. I wish I had. But I've done it with 2 other projects that have worked out stunningly well. And I have to admit, I have a most wonderful attorney. He's up in Illinois, but this guy just cuts through it. We get to it. We get done. If I have to talk to an accountant, I'll say, he said, and they go, they all work together wonderfully well. And you want them to work together well. Remember, you don't want someone who says, well, we don't have to really do it because there's a loophole. Listen, the second they tell you there's a loophole, you're going to get caught. Okay? Like I was telling Scott earlier, I've had the same accountant for 40 years. He owns a big building downtown, basically. And here's the reason why. He's honest. And so is his partner. And I've worked with him forever. And I've never had a problem. I've even been audited by the IRS. I walked in and walked out in 20 minutes. Okay? Yeah. 20 minutes. All right. I had a friend that had an accountant didn't sign off a piece of paper correctly, even though he paid everything. $200,000 later. Okay. So you want to make sure you learn something about how the accountancy works, the legal actions will work, how your contract interpolates, and how tax law goes. Because later on, these are all things you're going to face. You need to know these things. All right. Yeah. So, indie film, it's all about, we've got the makeup and the music. We'll have a good time. We'll all get together and party and run around and everything. That's great. But this is a business. Yes. And you're going to have to remember one thing. It's not going to be pretty. Not all the time. It'll be fun when it's over. You'll go to the shows. You'll have a good time. You'll talk to fans. You'll have a play. It's wonderful. And when you're making a movie, you're in makeup and you're acting goofy and you're having a good time.
But ultimately, it is a business. I do the same thing because we have the opportunity to have interns come in and we try to teach them about the ins and outs of the business. And, a lot of the questions, they're typical and you hear them all the time at shows, you want to get into special effects or you want to get into this. First thing I ask them is, what part of special effects do you want to get into? Because, from Michael Davey, I was taught by him coming up through Paramount Theatrical and Rick Gonzalez and Alan Duckworth. And they all said the same thing to me and prepared me. Do you want to be a lab guy? Do you want to be an applicator? Do you want to be all the above? Do you want to have a small or a large studio? The same thing goes with this. What is your resolve? You're living proof of it with Bubba, that took 10 years to come to fruition and actually be released as a film from the concept. So it takes a long time.
True.
To that end, though, I did want to ask you some questions about that. What was your big takeaway from doing that? Because I mean, now it's on Hulu, it's on all the streaming services, which is a good and a bad thing. But what was your takeaway after being on this side of it? What are your thoughts on it now?
In other words, now it's produced, it's done, and now I'm out here and I'm watching it be on Tubi and on Amazon Prime and all that. There are some of us out there who are, let's say we went through school, or we went through certain types of training, or we raised children, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to be any prouder the day you walk out there and you've done it, it's over, and the applause. When you walk out in graduation, they applaud. When you walk out of certification, they applaud. You walk out of a martial arts class and the whole place stands up, and everybody, basically, it is the greatest. And your kid graduates or gets married. It's exactly what it felt like. You're walking on air. It's all the pain and anguish you've been through is bloody total worth it.
Yeah,
because it's fantastic. It's a great feeling. I mean, I'm sitting at home and I'm like going, okay, I'm flipping through channels. So I'm on a streaming channel. I'm looking for a certain movie, and I'll put into Hulu was a riot because it's like I didn't even know it was on Hulu.
Yeah.
So I come home and wife goes, "You got to see this." I said, "What?" She goes, "There's something new on Hulu. I think you're gonna watch it." And I go, "Oh, cool! I got something new. We're cool, great, okay. What they got?" She clicks it. It is that, but there's a picture. It's me licking a lollipop. They use that for the plate for the Hulu.
Oh.
So I'm sitting there. If you go to my Facebook, you actually see on my Facebook page. I use it as my little Facebook moniker thing. And so I walked up to it. So I started to lick the lollipop back, it's my lollipop too, you sucker.
Yes.
And it was just the weirdest moment because you're sitting there going, there are 15 million people who are looking at that right now. I don't know whether to be embarrassed, hide, or go, yes.
Yeah.
So yes, I have to admit, it was wonderful. And it's just great to sit there and still flip through. And I get so many messages from people. I mean, it's like insane what goes on between the website and my Facebook, whatever it is. People are always getting a hold of me. I don't know what it is that movie did for people. I'm so happy about it. They feel connected. Yeah. Do you know how many people in the LGBTQ community use Bubba as kind of like a placard for a holding point? I have several that have hats and things like that because it's like Bubba's their spirit wolf. Yeah. Because here's one thing people don't realize about Bubba. Bubba was the movie and the comic were always all about acceptance.
Yes.
It was about. I always felt that certain people didn't get accepted all the time. I grew up a different faith, and it was hard in Central Florida back in the 70s. A lot of kids weren't allowed to play with you because you were a Christian, and a lot of junk went on. Okay, they ask you if you got horns in your head and all kinds of nonsense. Okay, because it's really funny. I could go back and answer. Go, yes, we did actually. We all yes, that's a Jew. That's not the devil. Here's a generic Jew. Anyways, the thing is, what's funny is that they didn't understand it wasn't accepted because the guy turns into a werewolf, right? Nobody did you notice that? Nobody, even in the comics, nobody reacts. He's just like, oh, it's Bubba.
Yeah,
his hat's cleaner. He doesn't smell as bad, but pretty much it's still Bubba.
Yep.
He still had to prove himself to that town, even this big tough werewolf and everything. He still had to prove himself. They still let him sit there and go, you're still a schmuck. Now, a character I wanted in the movie that unfortunately I had arguments, and we're not going to get into what the arguments were all about. I really wanted this character. Her name is Hatchet Hattie McDingle. I've had Hatchet Hattie since like 2001, 2002. She's based on a friend of mine's grandmother, who was a cop. Hatchet Hattie is the deputy sheriff of Cracker County and the only intelligent human being in the whole place. Her law is basically held out with a hatchet because this grandmother used to sit there if a kid got into trouble and someone hurt him or an adult was being rough. She would go to the trunk of her car, pull out the hatchet, going, "You're going to get this." Okay?
Nice.
Yeah, love it. So Hattie used to actually date Bubba back, when they were in middle school and all kinds of nonsense. And she and Bobby Joe are the best of friends, even though they date the same moron. It was very classic. Okay, it was very Betty and Veronica-esque.
Oh wow!
And the wonderful thing about it is that nobody understood that even in the movie, there's nothing racial, nothing prejudicial. Even though it's called Bubba the Redneck Werewolf, you gotta remember I grew up in 1970, 71, 72, 73, Florida, whatever it was here in Central Florida, where dirt roads and I-4 was two lanes and all kinds of crap. We got along.
Yeah.
We had barbecue and beer and stupidity and fishing and hanging out and 4th of July. We were a town, and everybody just kind of dealt with each other and got along. Yeah, there were a little bit this, like I said earlier, with the religious nonsense, but for the most part, we hung out. Everybody hung out.
Yeah.
So you were getting a really cultural. I mean, you go to a certain church, let's say in a certain part of town, to hang out, get barbecue because they would raise money with the barbecue on the weekend. Then you go to another place during the week, which was like, you could get some really good roti, or you get really good, all kinds of like amazing, Latino foods.
Yeah.
Because they were the different section of town, but we kind of floated between all the sections. It wasn't like you weren't allowed to go in there. There's certain places, yes, you didn't act the fool and didn't go so because it was like that was the neighborhood and that was their neighborhood and you stayed out of it. But there were a lot of crossroads that all of us could enjoy and go to. So, I mean, a night at the movies was every cross section of everybody in Orlando hanging out together, yelling, shouting, and screaming for the film.
Parkwood Plaza. You remember Parkwood Plaza, right?
Right.
Or that was a melting pot.
How about the Prairie Lake Drive-In Theater?
Yes.
Everybody was in their car hanging out. The kids are all playing at the playground, running around and everything like that. It was a party. I got to tell you, from 1971 till around 1995, Orlando was the party. I don't care about Lauderdale, the rest of that stuff. We were having a good time. Everybody got along. Even the cops used to there was street racing that went on. The cops even got their own car to race us downtown Orlando. Okay? Mm-hmm. So even at the Steak and Shake downtown Orlando, the cops would roll up with their car and they want to run.
Yeah. Yeah. And I bet you they would not admit to that today.
Nope. And the funny part is a lot of them were friends of yours, fathers that were like, they finally go, what are you doing down here? Da, da, da. What are you hanging out for? Da, da, da. You got to get home. Your mom's waiting for you, something like that. And all you guys get out of here too. That's how the cops handled us back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're a bunch of rotten kids. Okay. But that was unfortunately, it was a different and more innocent time. And the problem is, now that the world has gotten larger, kind of like they said with the tree of knowledge, the more people knew, the more dissatisfied they became. I'm not saying be ignorant, but look at the information you're ever given on anything, even the stuff I'm saying tonight, and even Scott is saying tonight. Research it, look it up. We're not the be all and end all. We're just trying to explain this to anything tonight to all of you guys out there that we've experienced it. We're just all talking about what we know from our experiences.
Yes.
And what we feel might be a good idea to try. All right.
Yeah.
Or try to stay on that road. Just remember one thing. Everybody you meet is someone you're going to run to again, especially in the film, comic, and entertainment industry in general. Mm-hmm. You're going to run across these people sooner or later. Be very careful about burning a bridge or acting the fool or taking umbrage at somebody because they just may be having a bad day. Now, if they aren't really a decent person, then to avoid them. And don't involve them in anything you're working in, okay? Because there's a lot of famous people that you and I have both worked with. Mm-hmm. They're not nice people. I'm sorry. Yeah. There are many that are. But when people approach me, especially, after the movie came out, and they wanted autographs and things like that. Like I go to San Diego Comic-Con. I can't walk down the aisle like about 2 feet without, it's like, I actually, when I had a Sharpie run dry, that's why I knew I made it. I actually had a Sharpie actually ran dry. Not get stolen, but actually ran dry for once. And it's really funny how they were asking, are you really like this? Is it really like that? Is it like, in other words, is the world of Bubba really like that? Yes. I grew up in Central Florida. That's what it's based on. It was like that back in the day. Yeah. Are you this kind of person that you feel that, in other words, they're asking me if I'm the person that's in the movie. Because you remember I play Satan in the movie.
Yeah.
And I try to explain to him, I said, look, he's basically a used car salesman. And don't buy the undercoating because, man, that's going to take you out. Yeah. He's based on every huckster, lunatic, maniac I knew of that was just a good salesman because all Satan really is a really good salesman. Yeah. He's selling cheap goods. He left his father's business. He's selling cheap goods down the street so you can either buy his stuff that falls apart in 20 minutes or go back to dad who's like going, yeah, well, it's old and it's clunky, but it stays together. And, it's like, great. So you can basically buy an Edsel from dad, or you could buy a Yugo from the devil. How's that? Let's look at it this way, okay? If anybody understands what a Yugo is, it was a terrible car. It was made in Yugoslavia. It fell apart in 5 minutes. You bought 3 Yugos when you bought a Yugo. You bought one to drive, one for parts, and one to throw into the deal for the guy you sold the other two to, so they have an extra parts car.
Yes.
And that was pretty much
I
it.
remember that.
And don't put yourself in that position, guys, because I got this here. The talent today is amazing. You can do special effects now, CGI, incredible. And makeup is now so much wonderfully easier. Thanks to Scott and Mike, because they're reinventing how things are done. Silicones, which was
I got to tell you though, man,
to put on, have become easier.
Michael Davey, I don't think we could go through a conversation about Bubba without mentioning Michael Davey, because he was a great inspiration and still is. But his products, from watermelon to the collodion color that he sells.
You want their shirts? $5. I'm sorry, they had somebody here ask the question. I go on, but no, Mike, I'm sorry, it was terrible. Mike, I'm sorry, Scott, continue. That was terrible.
But it's just I have to sing his praises, because he is a scientist when it comes to this. You can't trust a lot of makeups out there, but you can trust his. We use his watermelon all the time. Most of the time when you see Boris's makeup, it's either latex that's been treated, because I found that everyone in my family has a latex allergy. However, I use his watermelon between the latex and the skin, and they never have a reaction.
As a delaminator, that's it. You actually can use latex now. If you buy the watermelon, you coat it with the watermelon, get the action going, let it sit, and then you can apply this latex with alcohol. And when you're done, you peel it off in 3 minutes. Balls, you know how many Hollywood stars use his makeup? Avengers movies. I can name you a dozen films that his bald caps, Harry Potter, his bald caps, prosthetics are being used everywhere. But the greatest thing about it is that now you have a choice of, you can use the watermelon instead of latex in general, or you can coat it with the watermelon, including the silicone.
The encapsulant,
The encapsulant, you don't have to stick it or anything anymore, and you can be out of your makeup.
Yeah.
I mean, minutes, not hours, minutes, and painless.
Minutes.
And no rashes or problems.
Yeah.
And here's the thing about Mike. Oh, go on.
Our 5-year, well, now 6, little baby, since she was about 3, she was using watermelon. Okay, we were putting that on her skin, and she would cry, not because it hurt when she was taking it off, but because she knew she had to go without a boo-boo, and we would have to reapply to make her stop crying. And of course, I always got in trouble for that, because who did that to you, honey? Oh, my daddy. So thank you, Michael Davey.
but going back to Mike real quick, though. What people don't realize is that there's another famous gentleman by the name of Sir Humphrey Davy. Now, if you know anything about science, he's the guy basically who discovered the entire periodic table. He also had an assistant working for him by the gentleman by the name of Faraday. Mr. Faraday invented the electric motor. Okay? Michael Davy used to put on these shows at Christmas time with other scientists that were kind of like magician shows. The Queen would show up. They would reanimate dead tissues, all kinds of things. Sound familiar? Sir Humphrey Davy actually got fan letters from, you ready for this? Mary Shelley.
Oh, wow. Are you serious?
Fan. Mike told me she was a huge fan of Sir Humphrey.
Oh, my gosh.
If you ever want to find out more about Humphrey Davy, there was a brilliant thing by Tyson, Neil deGrasse Tyson, which is, oh, good Lord, Cosmos. Remember the Cosmos series? It's also animated. It was an animated piece plus live action. He does one on Sir Humphrey Davy specifically. It is brilliant. He was maybe not the nicest person in the world, but he was brilliant. And the funny thing about Mike is that one time we went online to look at a picture of his ancestor and Mike, and we put the photos together. Holy crap, it looked like the same person.
Oh, yeah.
It was hilarious. But let me put it this way. Yes, the Faraday cage. Exactly. That Faraday who worked with electricity. So Sir Humphrey Davy, this is his great nephew is Mike. And Mike is as good a scientist
I can see that.
His great uncle or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So when he did Bubba, the wonderful thing about what we were able to do is that we were able to get Fred Lass, who did brilliant work, in and out of the makeup in almost no time. You know who took forever to get out of makeup?
Oh, yeah.
You know why? It's not that Mike's stuff didn't. It stayed on beautifully, but I had to work like 13 hours a day. So there was something that had to be applied to it, which is like kind of a coating. This
Yeah.
particular coating, it was called Silicolor, and it was a silicone-based enhancer for color for his makeups, which were alcohol-based anyway. But it would seal it, so I could walk into a rainstorm. I could go like this. I could rub my face. This stuff was not coming off. The thing is, it would take it off was, we would use like Mirror State and things like that. We use like, alcohol thing. The funniest part is that every bathroom, and I went into it, had to take this stuff off, looked like an abattoir. I went to a spooky empire one time where I played the devil, and I went in the hotel room to take the makeup off. The maids had called the cops.
Oh, God. Yeah.
I mean, it looked like the Psycho bathroom.
I could imagine.
And the problem was I got up there when I was drunk. So, of course, I took the makeup. Clean up later. It'll be fine, right? Pass out next morning, leave. Didn't pay attention, of course, like an idiot, because I'm an idiot. And they walked in, and it's like, oh, cripes. What the hell went on in here?
Yeah.
Okay. And
you hope they have enough Clorox for all the white towels that got ruined.
Oh, the worst was the Ed Gein incident. And this is Mike's fault. Mike and I did a show. We went to do the IMAX in LA.
Yeah.
So he had done some prosthetic effects on me, right? And you've ever seen some of them? They're pretty severe. They're wonderful. And the IMAX people went crazy on a couple of them. Okay, that's the international makeup artist trade show. That's where everybody goes to get their stuff. So I'll tell you a funny story with that in a minute. What happened was that I took the prosthetic off and I left it on the bathroom counter, and it was a really bloody, nasty thing with stitches and stuff, and it was really evil. They came and they thought we'd flayed somebody.
Oh gosh!
They were afraid to touch it because it was so realistic. Look, somebody had actually taken a scalpel, and there's some crazed maniac running around the show.
Yeah.
Now this is Pasadena, California, which is really nice and mellow. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's really fun. I'm telling this now. I'm at Mike's booth. I'm telling the story now. Neil Gorton, who I don't know if a lot of people know, but he's actually the guy. It's Harry Potter, the guy who invented Dobby and all the rest. Again, another sweet, wonderful guy. Great to have a beer with. Fun to have a beer with. Just a really nice guy and funny as hell. So we're sitting there, we're talking, and he's looking at me like because I have a face, and most of you makeup artists, I can sit and model. They love it because I got the car. They call it the Karloff. Very thin, high cheekbones, of a high structure. You pretty much put anything on me and it'll work. Okay. So Neil's looking at me and sizing me up. And I know the look. I'm like going. It's like, okay, you want to put makeup on me. It's like being a girl, like going, you want to date me, don't you?
Yeah.
It's like hearing you laugh. And
And
it feels like going, he goes, Mitch, you have such a wonderful face for that. I said, thank you. Really do appreciate it. I said, can I ask you a question? He goes, of course. I said, you came up with Voldemort's makeup. You designed Voldemort. He goes, yeah. I said, people tell me that I am as evil as Voldemort. Just in general, he sat there, he looks at me like this. He's not skipping a beat. He looks at me and goes, well, I can only say this. He said, after speaking with you, he says, you're not as evil as Voldemort, but you're definitely less attractive.
Oh, God.
I said, I didn't know we were going to date. Okay, because I'm like, take it back. So I had to be a smart, like you told me I'm fast. I had to be a smart. So he started laughing. He goes, why were you? I said, let's stop it right now. I'm uglier than Voldemort. He goes, bitch, you're the one that looks in the mirror, not me every day. I said, yeah, I look at it, I go, shave it or cut it. How's that? Thank you.
Oh.
No, it was great. I loved it. Hey, how many people sit there saying that the guy who created Voldemort says, I may not be as evil, but I'm uglier.
Yeah.
Come on,
my gosh.
Sorry, infamy achieved. Come on, that's cool.
Yeah, but you also have to know Neil Gorton, and he is very down to earth, very relaxed, and Riley he has that British sense of humor.
Yes.
So he's not going to smack you over the head. He's going to give you the subtle jab, and you're going to like it.
Guys, it is as dry as the Hara in August. Okay, that he is one of the most wonderful, but it's brilliantly funny. And hey, Tyson. But the point is this, man. There's so many really great opportunities for you out there if you get into this business to have fun that you wouldn't expect you could have. Wind up in places you would never think you'd wind up in, and they invite you to do things that you never thought you'd ever get invited to do.
Right.
And I know everybody wants to be a celebrity, everybody wants to be a star, and I'm going to be honest with you. There's something, unfortunately, that can't be taught, and that's talent. We can teach you how to do anything with makeup and how to write and how to do this and everything. And I was a college instructor. But if you didn't have talent to be, let's say, into the entertainment part of it, what we did, and a lot of us did, and Scott, I know you've done it. We said, okay, but there are ways we can show you the things we do that can enhance your life. So I had people in my writing class that were never going to be authors. However, they had jobs where they worked offices or worked, software things or whatever. I said, you can be a better communicator.
Right.
You can write better reports. You can be more concise in ways. And you could be even better, let's say, at a cocktail party, more outgoing, because I'll teach you how to be a little more towards it. I'll teach you not so much to be a writer, but a raconteur. I'm going to teach you how to tell a story. Now, you can, even if you don't have talent, you can learn timing. It's like music. The metronome. Click, 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 click. Even the worst music students could learn to read music and learn how to try to time against the metronome at least. So a lot of times we can teach you to be a raconteur, which is a storyteller. I can do as a writer that. So don't give up on the fact that okay, I'm not going to write the great American novel, but you could be that wonderful person everybody wants to invite to a party or hang out with or talk to about a lot of other things. In other words, we can take your world and expand it further, maybe not into entertainment, but I can show you a very satisfying way to expand yourself as a human and have a lot of fun. So don't always go looking to be, the next American Idol or whatever the hell it is. And the other thing I would tell you is this: if someone tells you who has consummate experience, have pulled it off, they're making it, they got, come on. So like Mel Brooks comes up to you and says, something, you're a nice guy, but you're not a comedian. You're a nice person, but you're not you're not this, that, the other. Don't fight with them, please. You can only make yourself look worse, because you're basically telling an expert that you're a better expert, but you haven't proven anything yet. And that ego is what's going to get you killed. And if you do make it, please throw the ego out the window. They're like Harleys. They're expensive. They leak all over the place, and they're hard to maintain.
Yeah, very true.
Egos. I'm sitting there with a coffee mug with my freaking face on it right now. Yeah, no egos here, folks. Here we go. There we go. So see, this is no ego version of me. Okay, there it is. Now I got to look at that thing.
That's the difference between ego and promotion, though.
It's true.
You have to. I usually have my Monster Manor logos, and you're basically selling a product and brand recognition and stuff.
Let's see if I can do this. Look, I become Monster Manor also. I didn't even know I was living in Monster Manor. Look at this. I've been, you labeled my office, dude.
We're putting the stickers everywhere. You'll have a pillowcase with the logo on it tomorrow.
I'm Satan. You're turning into Legion. You are becoming everything and everybody, man. Just let you know. True evil.
Well, Boris loves to call me the Gene Simmons of the group because I'll license toilet paper, but that is the flip side from what it used to be, man, because I was always so worried about promotion. That was another thing we didn't get a chance to really get into yet, but I would if you have a moment more.
Of course. What's up?
Between the difference between the ego, which we're talking about, and the need for promotion, because a lot of people don't get that and they overstep the promotion end and become ego. That's a big problem in art and any industry, is that people don't know the difference between promotion and where that stops and where ego begins. It's
where you become classically obnoxious. Okay. And I'm going to tell you something. I am known to be an obnoxious individual, but I've actually used it as an art form. Because you laugh, but I use it for a good breaker. There's a lot of times where you'll find that, okay, I'll be snarky or fast-witted or whatever it is, and it's like I'll overtalk or overspeak. I'm doing this because honestly, it's like I'm creating a spell. I'm speaking a spell. It's like when you listen to a song and it catches you and you're entranced and you roll with it. That's a lot of what's going to go on. Now, going to the promotion and delineate the line between promoting and egotistical. If I've got a great product, okay, let's say I have a book or something. Okay, so I have this book, okay, and I'm going to promote this book, and I'm going to go, it's a great story. It's this, that, the other thing. I think you'd really enjoy it, right? Okay. And I think you'll find that we use some really interesting authors, and the technique we used for this book was called a blind robin, which is basically every writer got one line, but didn't know the rest of the story. They got the last line or the last page, let's say, of the previous person's story, and we pushed it forward. So the technique we used here is interesting and fascinating and wonderful. Okay, so this is how we sell this book. Okay, Now that was promotion. It's a unique idea never been done before. Okay, this promotion. Here's ego. Nobody could have done this but me, man. Let me tell you something. The people I work with, we are like stars. We're like the best there is out there.
Mm.
Nobody could have come up with anything this brilliant, man. So you know something? If you don't like it, you're an idiot. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Scott, how many times have we seen that? You're too stupid to like what I have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you seen that? Or don't you know who I think I am?
Yeah. We joke about that, man. We joke about that because you see it. It happens. People get so full of themselves and they believe their own hype and they wind up being, I'm going to say it, assholes. And it's like, just be kind. Because the thing is about any production, okay? Every production that you do, and you said it before in relation to the Bubba movie, is you're not just promoting your part in it. You have an obligation to promote it for everyone that had something to do with it, that put their heart and souls into it. Michael Davey, Rick Gonzalez, all of the team, the lighting people, the audio people, everyone that was an intrinsic part to that feature. And you promoting Bubba is promoting all those fine people, you know?
Because that was the whole point. Like I said, even this book, which, you know, I mean, you know, it's really funny. You want to see a cover?
Yeah, what's this one?
This is The Dark and Stormy Night, the worst title you could ever call a book. My wife was a book editor. She did magazines, several different books and things like that over the years. And, you know, English major, journalism background. So she came with this crazy idea where she wanted to take all of the writers we hung out with. We called ourselves the Dark Alley Crew. It was me. It was like Tyson Hanks. It was John Catapano, Melissa Gibo, Lynn Gibson, you know, Victoria Nations. We had this wonderful group of writers. Okay. And my wife came with this great idea. What if we write a book and no one knows we're going to write a book and no one knows what the book's about? I was like, the hell is that? She goes, here's what we're going to do. You're all going to write a chapter and we're only going to give you the last page of the chapter from the previous writer and keep handing it down the line. You only saw the last, you didn't see, if you were on chapter 5, you never saw chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4. All you saw 4, you didn't see 4. All you saw 4 though was the last page. Now, some of us got a full page, and some of us got a paragraph because that's where it landed and ended up. I wanted to have to finish the book up, so I wound up with a paragraph, not knowing what the hell was going on. Here's the funniest thing. No. Let me tell you about these writers, and they're not egos. These people really are talented. It worked.
Yeah.
This book, the story is confluent. It makes sense. I can't figure out how the hell, it was like magic. It worked. It's the craziest, most risky thing I've ever seen a group of people try. Yeah. And I just love the fact that everybody threw in and did it. And all you guys. Actually, we have this book. It is on Amazon. It's like 99 cents. It's only digital. But all the proceeds go to charity. So if you want to. And here, the cover, this wonderfully eerie, ugly, nasty cover. Do you know who did this? This is Michael Broom. Do you know? Now, you know who Michael Broom is, but a lot of people don't. Michael was the first artist on Bubba and one of my dearest friends. And he was with me in the trenches back in the 90s. We were all getting started. Michael Broom is now the storyboard and design artist for Creepshow, Walking Dead, The Orville, Wolverine Origins, Star Trek, you name it. Mike has been doing it. He actually works with a lot of the people at K&B, Greg Nicotero and Howard Berger, who are wonderful people. I mean, I haven't seen Greg in a long time. I saw him back in the day with Mike and everything. I saw Howard about 3 or 4 years ago, Howard Berger, and just, these are some of the nicest friggin' people. Yeah. And I tell you, the funniest thing that Howard Berger ever said, he walks to the Mike Davies booth, and he picks up something called Sweat Stop, which is a topical antiperspirant, so you can use on sets, you know, sweat your makeup off and everything. Right. Brilliant. He goes, I buy a shitload of that stuff. He loved Mike. He hasn't seen Mike in a long time, but he loved Mike. But he walks up at the booth and is like, that's great. When Howard Berger walks across the floor at a trade show and goes, I buy a shitload of stuff, pointing at your booth.
Yeah, Mike Davey was joking about putting that on the front of the website page. I'm like, do it.
We can't do it. We couldn't. We promised Howard that we wouldn't do anything that horrible. I mean, we're terrible people. He was laughing, going, you know, you guys want to. No, we're not going to do that. Because, again, see, now that's ego and that's being professional. Because, it'd be fun to do. And promotion. Now, there you go. There's our great example. We promotionally could do it if we wanted to. Now we know better than to do it because it wouldn't have made him that happy, probably, and it's respect. So if I was, let's say, egotistical, I go, he loves my stuff. I don't care what he said. I'm going to put it on. It's going to every label and everything like that. I don't care if he gets mad at me. Oh, yeah, he's going to get mad at you. He might tell you he's mad at you, but you may go for a job where he's involved and he's a big name. Mm-hmm. You may wonder why, as brilliant as your portfolio was that day, you didn't get hired. Maybe it's because he realized you were the guy doing that.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying. There you go. There's our cautionary tale come full circle. How's that, Scott?
That's a beautiful way to come to a close, because I mean we are getting way past what I promised you we would stick to, the hour format.
Had a good time. I hope everybody else did too, honestly. And it's really nice because we didn't, usually I do these things. I do a lot of like the cheap jokes and they're shtick and da. But Scott and I know each other for so long that we wanted to, tonight we decided when we were in the pre-talk about this, we want to give you information you can really use. So I promised you something about distribution. Before we go, can I throw them one thing you need? One thing I think
absolutely.
I want you all to write this down now. Okay, please write this down. Film Freeway, like freeway, Freeway, film FILM. You're going to get distributed. It's a one-stop. You finish your film, you bring it to Film Freeway. It's free to sign up. You would then have access to every film festival, streaming service, everywhere. Okay?
Wow.
You now can go, it's called, it's on, you just type in on Google Film Freeway or Bing or whatever you use, and you'll find it, and you bring your film there, and you'll find somebody who will get you moving further forward. If it's worthy, it will work. You'll get to the festivals, everything will take it, and it's free to sign up. And there are free festivals.
I did not know about that one.
A lot of people didn't. A good friend of mine, Sam Gaffin from Killer Robots. And that movie, if you haven't seen Killer Robots, Crash and Burn, you've got to go online and find that movie. It's brilliant.
Yes.
Anyway, Sam's one of my favorite people. He's amazing. But he's going to turn me onto it. And now, so all the other indies out there, this is where you guys can go now and take your shot. Okay? So go make a movie. You have as good a chance as anybody else. But we gave you all the things are good. Don't worry about the attorney. Just get a decent contract. You can buy boilerplate from LegalZoom. It'll work for you. Just find out what you need for entertainment. Get a good accountant. Make sure you learn about everything you're going to be working in so you can talk to everybody on the set like not an expert, but at least knowledgeable. Okay?
Right.
No ego. Be good to your people. And better than anything else, please don't make yourself crazy to the point where you're ruining your life, your family over it. Okay? If it's putting that much stress on your family, you're not doing it correctly, or maybe you shouldn't be doing it at all at this time. Maybe you need to wait a little bit. It'll be there waiting for you. It's not going to get past you, because I'm going to be honest with you. And it's something I've never said. I will be 63 years old this August. I've never given my age. Tonight, I'm going to give my age, because you know why? First of all, I'm in damn good shape. No, I'm kidding. No, seriously. No, the reason is simple. It's because it took me a long time to pull off the comics, the books, and everything else like that. The thing is, like I told you, I was working in like back in the day mechanicals and shit. You guys have instant everything now. If you learn how to use the software correctly and everything, you can. Let me put it this way: what I took 30 or maybe 40 years to pull off, you can do in 3 and 4 years now, and even less. Oh yeah. Okay. So all that's out there for you. So don't obfuscate yourself with things like, your ego or whatever you got to do. No. Get to the work, get an outline, get a concept, and please original. Because if it's not original, it'll last a little while, but it'll be like a snowflake on a hot plate. It's going to go away fast. I realize now that what I made with Bubba is going to be a cult classic that's going to live way past me, I find out. And that was really weird to find out, because I found it, and real quick before we go, that was the European people who told me this. I found from fans in Europe. Bubba went to Europe, became this huge, crazy hit. It was shown on German national television, Silverline. And now here's the thing, you've made it. They subtitle a movie, that's nice. They redub it. Yes. You're gold. You're heading for immortality. I found they redubbed my movie, and I was telling Scott earlier, they redubbed it in German. And me and the rest of the crew, with the German voiceover artists, is the funniest thing. For the only way I'll watch Bubba, I watch it in German. I understand it, but I love it in German. The funny thing is that they had used Plattdeutsch, which is Low German.
Yeah.
And Yiddish, because there were terms in there. There were Yiddish words like shiksa and things like that. I was telling Scott earlier. They didn't use them. Like, going, so who dubbed this? Mel Brooks? This is great. I love it.
Yes.
It was terrific. But I have these great fans out there now. I love the European fans. But it's funny. This is Bubba the Redneck Werewolf. They love it. Every place has a small town where there's just people brewing beer in the basement and stuff and hanging out. This is really what the world truly is.
Yeah.
And we did the movie. I told people, everybody gathered together, like I told Scott earlier. It's going to take a village to raise this werewolf, and now we're a global village. So now when you're making things, everybody, you're making them for the world. Whether you think so or not, the world is now watching and going to do and work with you. You're going to have fun. And I'm very blessed, and I cannot even begin to thank all of you out there who watch the movie or show up in makeup, or my cosplayers that walk around the country dressed as Bubba and the rest of the crew. I got to tell you, thank you so much. But one thing, please, if you see me at a grocery store, I'll take the selfie and stuff with you. But if my wife's with me, please don't ask me to do this. She hates the devil face. You're going to get me in so much trouble if you make me do the devil face, okay? So
save it for the conventions.
Save it for the conventions. We're going to hang out. We'll have some fun there and stuff like that. But it's really disconcerting. You're standing in line at Publix and you got the rotisserie chicken. It's going cold and you're trying to get out of there. Get cold. Like, can you do the devil face for me? Like, who are you? And the checkout lady's like going, okay, this guy's an idiot and he's going to be out of here in 2 seconds. And also, remember, I play Satan. So be very cautious about going, it's the devil. Because, people are very religious these days. In a lot of ways. I've had some problems where I thought torches and pitchforks were going to come after me, man. Okay, I've had to run out of places because there was one small town here in Florida I could not step foot in because they saw me. I was in trouble. Anyway, folks, that's it for tonight. Good night, Scott. Have a wonderful life. Everything's good. Roll the credits. We're out of here. Okay? I hear the producer in the background going, come on, guys.
No. We're fairly loose, and we'll edit all that crap out later. But I did want to go out on the Monty Python and now for something completely different. Not so different, but there is also a cool thing. We're going to put this up there because this is a book I understand you have out now. It's this one here. Tell us, take us out on this. Okay. Give us the 2-sentence thing that you were talking about. Explain that to us, because that looks intriguing.
These are 2 hitmen who retired from the mob, and now they're up against stuff that doesn't want to die or easily. That's
very cool.
They are in the deepest water of all. They are trained and know how to kill. They wound up in one adventure where they went with supernatural things, and now, because of what they did, they're really not accepted that well back into their families. So they had to kind of go off on their own, and now they're basically hitmen of the supernatural. And this is the second one that came out. Let's see if we get this up over here. There we go.
Yes.
This is Family and Fiends. It's the anthology. It's short stories based on the 2 of them and further adventures of these 2 guys. Okay, so the first one is basically they go to a Caribbean island where there are vampires and zombies, and they're out to take over the world by creating a product that they're going to sell to everybody else that's going to do horrible things to human beings, and how what they use to make it is even worse. And Vinny and Mook are going down there to rescue a mobster's daughter who was taken from a goth club in New York and taken to this island where they're going to do horrible experiments on her and other people.
Oh, lovely. Reasons.
So it's a real Pulp Fiction kind of feel book, and I think you guys would enjoy it. It's funny. It's dark. It's a lot of laughs. And the thing is, if you read that 400-page monster I wrote, you get to read this one, which is real simple and fun. You actually read this one. It's available on Amazon. Right now, Hitman for Horror is only digital. But this one, you actually can get physical copies if you want. And Scott, thank you for mentioning Vinny and Mook, because Vinny and Mook is the next thing I'd really like to see if I could pull off. As far as, fiction come to entertainment. I really would. I mean, I love Bubba, and I'll do another Bubba when the time comes. But right now, there's a Bubba out there, and people are enjoying it, and we'll get to it. Right now, Vinny and Mook would be a lot of fun. And that's what I'm looking at right now, see if I can pull that off.
That's going to be the next thing I think I check out of yours, because I was reading the reviews, and they looked incredible. And just what I was reading in my research before you were on the show, that looks like a damn good concept. So I'm going to be checking that out.
It's just a great summer read. Okay, I'm going to tell you this. Just sit down, get an easy chair, get a beer, a cup of coffee, kick back, and watch these 2 go at each other. Like, like a straight Abbott and Costello without meaning to be. It's hilarious. You'll like it.
Yes. Awesome, man.
All right.
Well, I will let you go then. Obviously, thank you for being on the show. We've been a long time friends, but it's cool to have you on the show and talk shop and catch up a little bit. Definitely have to come back on because I have a feeling that the Vinny and Mook is going to be one of those next things. So please promise that you'll be back to promote that when it comes.
Of course, I'll tell you what, and we'll go to the premiere together. How's that? Okay.
Oh, awesome, man! Awesome.
Because we said it. Now he's got to remember it's out there into the atmosphere in the universe, which means now we've spoken it. It's like a magic. It will happen. And Scott and I are going to be on that rug, and our wives are going to be really upset because we're going to leave them home and we're going to have beer, we're going to do stuff, and we're going to run around and junk. Yeah, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I heard the background. Yeah, we're both dead men walking. Okay,
she'll be cursing our names.
It's now about zombies because now we're both dead men walking. It's okay.
Yeah.
On that note.
Yes. Thank you for coming on, my friend. And, normally we would have Boris on in this segment. He was doing, I guess he was on a pickleball tournament with the Master, so he couldn't actually make it on tonight. And oddly enough, and I'm going to break from the Monster Manor mystique for a minute, and please bear with me. We had a special thing planned for tonight with Boris and a new character. Well, the lady, 76 years young, that was going to be our guest in this segment. Last Saturday, she was hit by a drunk driver. Luckily, she is okay. She had a fractured ankle or foot and a lot of bruising throughout her body. But, this hits really close to home because this particular lady is almost like a second mother to me. She is a second mother to me. She lives nearby. So I want to tell you that there are real horrors in this world, in this universe. And, everyone drinks. Well, I'm not going to say everyone. Yes. Horrors. But yes, be careful. Everyone is going to take a drink every now and then, but please, I want to drive this home, not to get on my soapbox, but if you drink responsibly. Be careful of those around you, because it's not just you on the roads. It could have been a lot worse, but we have not canceled that special little thing. We are going to do it in the future as soon as she's healed up. She is still recuperating, 76 years young. It's not like it's going to be a snap, but I don't want to give her name away or anything like that. But to this individual, we're putting our thoughts and prayers out to you in the universe. Get well soon. We love you, and we will see you soon. Thank you for watching this episode of Monster Manor. Check us out next week, or not next week, in 2 weeks. See, I'm not used to this because Boris usually takes us out, and we even miss Boris. It's sad that he's not here, but pickleball championships can't be ignored. But anyway, yes, we'll see you in 2 weeks with our next guest. Please, if you haven't checked out our website, www.monstermanor1313.com, it has like a one-stop for everything. You can get to our YouTube channel, Facebook channel, promotional stuff that we have coming up, shows, that sort of thing. So it's a one-stopper. And check out the Slasher app as well. I know they've gotten a lot of attention lately, but it's kind of like Facebook for horror fans. So if you are out there and you're pedaling around on the app stores, check out Slasher because it's an app, basically Facebook, just for us horror geeks. What's that? Oh, yeah. I always got to give this one, too. Patreon. I can't tell you how important it is that if you like what you see, a few bucks here and there to support it would be cool. We have very low plans as well. I hate doing this part of it because, again, you have that ego versus promotion thing. But we have tremendous opportunities to expand the show. Sets, upgrading equipment, lighting, sound, all of that stuff is expensive. Shoot, just running the StreamYard is $25 a month just for that. So things add up. So anything helps. And we do try to give more than we even promise on there, because you are part of the family in production, in bringing this out. So if it's something that you like and you have the extra money, don't take away from priorities, obviously. But if you have a little bit that you want to support us with, that's awesome too. But anyway, until next time, thank you for joining us. Thank you to our special guest star, Mitch Hyman, an old friend of mine. And if you guys have any other questions or comments, please go to our Facebook page and drop them in the comments. And thank you for being on here tonight. We'll talk to you guys next time. The Boris for the voiceover video. Yeah. Never mind then.